Welcome to Preferring Mike. When God the Father put Jesus to death, it was his body and his conscious soul that literally died. It is in actuality his spirit alone that can never die. Immediately when the Son cried from his last breath, he let out the Spirit, and he died, just as dead as the tomb rock itself. I say that specifically because billions of people do not think Jesus died at all. Many of those have the idea that the Son was somehow merely asleep. In fact, multiple millions confess to believe only his body died. And by saying Jesus is the same as God, that his soul never really did die. According to common thinking from average consumer Bibles, Jesus said in John 11 that whoever lives and believes in him will never die. You might want to take the time to pause the video here and read through that passage. Notice that it says everyone, not a few, some, or many, but absolutely all people. Everyone who lives and believes. Notice also that it uses the word never in reference to a subsequent death. It does not say rarely or only in a few cases. In this verse, it only says never. Equally important, the concept of never dying is thought to be present truth in our very day, even wholly dependent upon the individual person believing it. The reader should first realize here that John 1 through 11 carries the required emphasis for Israel to believe, and that their believing was only a necessity before the crucifixion of Jesus. When reading, we know the Son's death had not yet occurred, that is, during the earlier events of John's book. Then it is John chapter 12 that explains why this is true, and why no one can believe this apart from God's faith of the Father with his Son. For the Lord has blinded their eyes and calluses their heart, lest they may be perceiving with their eyes, and should be apprehending with their heart, and may be turning about, and I shall be healing them. So, referring back now to the certainty of human mortality, we do know that with all the health and medical advances in this generation, that human mortality still continues on at a constant 100% rate. And guess what, folks? If no part of our conscious soul dies with our body, as often quoted as in John 11:26, then Jesus himself never died. The thought process of never dying because of one's personal belief should indicate an obvious false conclusion. That is, to any Gentile reading the passage, especially when trying to claim its Old Covenant context. The background of the passage is directed to the Israelite or Jew proselyte, that Jesus the Messiah himself is the resurrection they are yearning for. Yeshua then speaks to them these words, that he who lives and believes shall by no means be further dying, that is, into the eon. In fact, even the dark lying adversary, since a beginning, was made to be questioning this death. Yahweh God had purposed him to disrupt the Garden of Eden, and that same serpent said the most brazen of falsehoods, that when we eat of the tree, we shall not surely die? Well, we've got some great news instead, and that comes through a pattern of sound, healthy words. A gift of reading that cuts to avoid the mystery of ambiguous interpretation, including the gospel account of things whenever taken carelessly. Your dad, with care, desires you to understand his entire word. He's the Almighty that roused the soul of the Son out of death. He did that so the Son would physically raise and live, exactly as he has risen and will draw all to himself. Genesis 3, 4-6. John 11, verses 13, 14, and 24-27. Also, John 12, verses 24 and 25, 31-33, and 37-46. The content is from the Concordant Literal, the Old and New Testaments.